Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained best pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feeling bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge sent us podcast. Hey.
Jeopardy! Introducing today's contestant, a teacher from Columbia, South Carolina, Robert Barra. A project manager from Somerville, Massachusetts, Emily Dumas. And our returning champion, a bartender from New York, New York, Austin Rogers, whose 2-day cash winnings total $59,900. Now, here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Johnny.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Sent Us podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie.
And I'm Sweetie.
And we thought we'd do a bonus ep, but one a little different. Kind of a little different. As you have known, that's weird. Super weird English. As you know, I was a contestant on Jeopardy, and it's been a long time coming. I filmed the episode in April, and it just aired last night. So, like, huge day for me, huge day for Sweetie. It's amazing to finally see that episode air after like a couple months, and we've been getting like some such great feedback from fans and just asking a lot of questions, so we thought it'd be really fun to do a bonus app all about Jeopardy. Woo! I mean, who doesn't love Jeopardy? Love it. Jeopardy. Yeah, so it's gonna be mostly me talking. We got a lot of questions from listeners of the podcast, so we'll deal with those too. But yeah, so this is all you ever want to know about Jeopardy. So I am a huge Jeopardy fan. I always have been. I remember watching this as a little girl. As I moved on in my life, just love trivia, love tons of useless knowledge and even useful knowledge. Big trivia fan. I've always watched Jeopardy for years. Jeopardy does an online test every year. I've taken it probably 10 years at least running, as long as I moved to Boston.
Me too. Sweetie and I would take it both at the same time, and we'd be like equally saying words of like angst while it was happening. And it's really, if I may, because this is like one of the few times that I have an experience that I can participate in before you ramble on. But so the test is 50 questions, and you get 15 seconds to answer each one. You have to type it in. It's not multiple choice like the Jeopardy app game or whatever. It's hard. And they're like, some questions are easy, some are hard. But I'll tell you, when you're under the stress of the timer, because you have like the timer that ticks down, you will forget things that you would never have forgotten otherwise. I remember one question was about like Dame Judi Dench, and I could not fucking remember her name, and I was so pissed. So we took this Jeopardy test every year. Every year we took it. Yep. And on this occasion, what happened, Sweetie?
So this time we took it was in 2015. So we still lived together at that point. So I think that was the one when like you took it in your bedroom and I took it on the couch and we're like, and we both would come out and be like, oh my God, I did horrible, like whatever. So you never know like what happens after that because they don't give you any feedback. You don't know. It just goes back to like the Jeopardy headquarters or whatever. So that was in the winter. They always do it in like February. And then in October, I get this email that was like, hey, just reminding you to like respond to this email we sent you a week ago about this Jeopardy audition. And I was like, what Jeopardy audition? So the original email went to my fucking junk folder. So luckily they like resent, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? I've been waiting for this like literally my entire life. And it was an opportunity to audition in person in Boston, luckily, like where, you know, we are at that time we were living in Medford, but like it was like down the street from where like my job was. And I was like, I cannot fucking believe like this is like the like dream freaking come true. So I auditioned in person, almost didn't make it. Fucking MBTA, thank you very much. Bullshit. Was late, ended up having to literally sprint to the auditions, show up like huffing and puffing. My face is like super red. And they're like, okay, everybody, welcome to Jeopardy auditions. We're going to take Polaroids of everybody and pass out this form. I like literally cannot breathe. So I get like my picture taken in like a hot, sweaty mess, go into the audition room, and that audition was another test that you had to take, and it was a written one, kind of similar thing as the online one in that you only have like a couple seconds to like answer each one, but pretty scary. And then they did like a on like in-person little like mock Jeopardy game, so you have the little buzzers and it's all like taped, and they're looking to see like how you interact on camera. They don't want like total duds. And then they do the little interview thing where Alex is like, and it's all like just talent scouts, and they you had put down stuff on your form that was what they could potentially ask you on your interview. So mine was how I had like hiked, I think this was before we had the podcast. And I had hiked for my 30th birthday through Scotland with my friend. So they asked me about that. And I did like a cute little like wink to the camera or something. I was like, I'm totally making this. But you don't know. So again, they dismiss you from that audition being like, hey, well, if you get at least a 70 on the written test and your screen test is good, like you might make it. Like, good luck. We might call you in 18 months. And if we don't, like, please audition again. Like, literally, that's all you know. So this was October 2015. So the months tick by. All 2016 ticks by. I'm like, well, guess that's it. January 2017 would have been like the time. That was 18 months. Or what I thought. Well, what would it be? No, it wasn't. It was exactly. Okay, so for some reason I was thinking like January. Yeah. So 2017 rolls by. I'm like, well, I guess I didn't make it on Jeopardy. Like, sad. And the thing is they tell you they will call you if you do make it. So every time a California number came on my phone, I'm like, this is it. And Sweetie and I talk on GChat like all day at work. So I'd be like, oh my God, a California number just called me. And she would be like, pick it up. I'm like, no. They said they left a message, and they never left a message. So I knew it was never Jeopardy. So I'm at work in April of this year, and Culver City, California comes up on my caller ID. I'm like, oh, look at that. I was on like a conference call or something, and I don't pick up. But then, if you have an iPhone, like it'll ring, and then like a couple seconds later, you'll get another little thing that says voicemail. And I was like, voicemail, California. I was like, oh, that's weird. So I answer the phone, and this woman being like, hey, Emily, this is Lori. I'm from a little show called Jeopardy. Just like would love to have you call me back. My number is this, and this. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Freaking out. So I texted, as I said, like Andre and I chat all day on GChat. And I go, this is not a drill. I was like, Jeopardy just called me. So I go into a conference room and I call this lady back. She asked me a couple questions, like along the lines of like, have you been arrested in the past year? Like, stuff that would maybe disqualify you to be on TV, I guess. Have you been on other game shows? Like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope. She's like, okay, great. We'd love to book you. Our filming dates are these dates. And it was 3 weeks from that day. Would you like to come out? I'm like, you bet. Silently freaking out in this like little tiny like conference room that we have, like little kind of personal conference room. Immediately call my mother. I'm like, Mom, guess what? And she guessed, which was pretty cool. So cool, Carol. I think she could like tell the excitement in my voice. Unbelievable. So then I had 3 weeks to prepare. Sweetie and I here had to like figure out how we were going to fly out to California on 3 weeks notice. Let my work know. Debated about studying, wasn't sure like whether. I started making flashcards. I watched like every episode that I could. I watched a couple old episodes. And my schedule was just too crazy. I got to a point where I was like, if I don't know it, like I don't know it. I'm not gonna making flashcards of the periodic table elements is like not gonna fucking help me at this point. It was just too much. And I'm like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna have fun with this. This is an amazing experience. It's gonna be so much fun. Amazing. So end of April, Sweetie and I fly early morning flight to LA, get there at like 10 a.m. I think our flight was at like 6, right? Show up, we get to our hotel. We had never been to LA before, so that was really cool to see LA. We had a whole like day, so it was Monday, and then the filming wasn't till Tuesday. So and they give you all the instructions, what you need to do, what you need to wear, like crazy dress code. You can't have like jeans and stuff like that. And they want you to look nice. They want you to show up with your hair done, but no makeup or anything. They have makeup artists and stuff. So I wake up at like 4 a.m. We have kind of like a busted hotel. It was like, so they film in Culver City, California, which is like right outside of LA. It's where all the movie studios and stuff are. So Jeopardy films in the Sony lot, which is the original MGM lot, right? And that's like where The Wizard of Oz was filmed, and like a couple CBS TV shows. And it's like really cool. If you've ever seen like movie studios, there's these like giant big buildings because they have to have like big movie sets and stuff in there, right? Or TV sets. Really cool. So I get up on that morning and no hot water in the hotel. Bummer. So I have to take like a ghetto shower, just like wash my pits and privates and like wash my hair under the sink. Dreadful. But whatever, wake up, see a high-speed chase on the TV, like 5:30 a.m. is like I'm eating like my only breakfast and I'm like barely able to eat. I'm so nervous. This van shows up and it's just this like basically a van full of nerds. And we're like from all across the country. Everyone was like nervous, but like still chatty and like so sweet. And I mean, from like every like walk of life in the US, it was so cool. And like everyone was like super, super sweet. So they show up and, we show up and they give us on the movie set or the Sony set, Sony Studios. And we are kind of like led to this room, and then we're basically like prepping for hours. So they basically give you like just the whole rundown, like what the show's going to be like, all like kind of the legal stuff. You like go through all your forms and everything like that. And then they're like, okay, and the next and then like let's get everyone into makeup. So there's like I don't know how many were there, was 16 of us or something like that. And they, everyone has to get their makeup done, and they do really cool, like, it's HD TV, right? So it has to be like HD makeup. So they have these like really cool makeup artists and, minimal makeup, but like, more than you would have like that I've ever done probably like in my whole life, which was really neat. So that was I got there at like 6:30 in the morning, and then I don't think we taped until like 10 a.m. or something. Yeah. So we do all this pre-work, and it's just like an hour or two of just like basically like all this legal stuff and explanation, all this stuff. And finally they're like, okay, like now let's go out to the set. And you get out to the set and you're like, what is this? Because it like is exactly what the Jeopardy set looks like, but like you are on it. And it's smaller than it looks like on TV, as they always say. It's just like a little bit more compressed, but it's basically like exactly what it looks like. You meet the whole crew. We did like a bunch of practice rounds, and they start telling you like kind of what the whole buzzer situation is. And maybe we'll go about that a little bit detail later. And then you take a bunch of pictures and stuff because they use that for all like the promo material and everything like that. And everyone's just really nervous and kind of freaking out. And then basically like the time comes and they're like, okay, like who's going to go first? So the thing with game shows is that there's tons of legal stuff around them. Have you ever seen the movie Quiz Show, which was like the time in the 60s where there was this like very famous cheating scandal where they like wanted this guy to win, like, and basically like gave him all the answers because they wanted to like promote this guy and this image of this show. And once that was found out, they started after that being all these regulations about like, how the questions would come down for for game shows and stuff like that, because nothing could be fixed. They don't want anything to be fixed. It has to be super, super fair, especially when money's involved. So, everything was totally random. We didn't know like who was going to be. They filmed 5 shows a day, and we didn't know what show we were going to be on until the next show ended. It's all super random. We all had like names on index cards, and like it just gets picked like super, super random. Every show is super, super random. They have like lawyers involved. It's just very like has to be the most random possible, right? So we're all in the audience, and then they pick like the 3 people that are gonna go. So it wasn't me. So then I just like sat in the audience, and then they let the studio audience come in. So that included Sweetie, who was my guest. So she had with a couple friends, and then they have just random people who are touring the Sony set, so they get to come too. And then like all of a sudden the shows start. So then I watched 3 shows go by. I'm just in the audience. We broke for lunch. They gave us like a free lunch stipend, and then after lunch, my name gets drawn. And I really wasn't nervous until I had to go on. And then I literally thought I was going to piss my pants. And you don't really like even have time to think, because they're like, okay, like Robert, Emily, like Austin, like backstage. And so you go, and then like you have to go in the makeup chair again because they touch you up. They go over like the little thing that Alex is going to say to you, and then like all of a sudden you're being mic'd up and you're behind that podium, and they're like, okay, ready, go. And I like literally thought I was going to piss myself like behind the podium. I was like, I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't really eat a lot at lunch. I felt sick. I felt like I was going to faint. It was like, and like trying to remember shit. And I remember like after lunch, they did another practice round. And I was sucking at the practice so hard. You remember that? Were you watching me? So bad. And like the kind of talent scouts came up to me and they're like, okay, remember what we said about the buzzer? And I started getting like really inside my head being like, and this is like not something I would ever do, but for some reason, like I got so intimidated and I was like, you don't belong here. Like you are dumb. You're not going to do well. And it started like really like fucking with me, and it was awful. And I remember at one point I was like, Emily, you got to stop this. Like you deserve to be here. You are smart. Like you can do this. Like I had to like completely like reset my mind because I was like freaking out because I could not get that buzzer to work. I wasn't answering in on any questions. They like just let me buzz in sometimes, I think because they felt bad for me in the practice. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks. So anyway, so we get mic'd up. They have the way the behind like the little thing works is that there's these little lifts. So they want all the contestants to be the same height. So both the guys I were against were about 6 feet tall, maybe, and I had heels on, but I was like maybe 5'7", if that. So like I was the only one like lifted up on like the thing on the podium, like it's like a thing that comes up from the ground. So then they're like, okay, write your name on the thing. So it's like a little like kind of digital board thing, and then that's the name that shows like as you're starting up. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, like ready. And then someone like powder puffs your face, and they're like, all of a sudden you're hearing, there's like a camera in front of you, and you have to look at that one. And whenever the light is on with that one, that's the one you look at. If it's the other one, like, oh, I was the second person, so I had to look at the second camera when it like went to me and they were introducing me. Yeah. So it's like all these like little technical things you have to remember. And then all of a sudden the show starts. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I like do have almost no recollection. I like completely blacked out. You're just like, it's just so much. It's just so overwhelming. So the show went on, and obviously knew, like, if you've seen the show, Austin, who is like on the show now, is like incredible. He's so good, and he was great at that buzzer, and we just got smoked. So the first like round, it was just really frustrating because I could like never buzz in at the right time. I got a couple, but like that was super frustrating. Did a great interview. I thought really impressed with that. Got the shout out to the podcast. What? That was awesome. And then, bombed in final. But that's okay because I was like ready to get out of there at that point. It was like such an exhausting day. I had so much fun, but I've like never been more tired and like out of it in my life. And the show's done. They take like a couple pictures and they're like, okay, like you signed something, and then you can stick around and like wait to watch the other game. So there's one more show being filmed that day when I was there, and they're like, you can stay and watch, or you can go home. I'm like, I'm going home later, time for a drink. Like craziest fucking day of my life. And I just like, I hadn't been able to even blink at Sweetie like the entire time. She was in the audience, but I couldn't speak to her. I couldn't make eye contact. Like I did, but like you weren't supposed to, because again, they're like so crazy about cheating. And then I just gave her a big hug, and I was like, oh man, I wish I did better. And she's like, you did great. And we just were like so thrilled, and I was just out of my mind. And then we left, and then that was it. That's when I was on Jeopardy. So amazing experience. So again, like that was filmed end of April, and then the show didn't air until this Thursday. So I knew like they tell you when you're there, obviously, like what day yours is going to air. So I always knew it was September 28th. Very, very excited. Had this really amazing party at this bar in Somerville that the bartender, Chris, hey Chris, who listens to this podcast, plays Jeopardy there every night. So I was like, this would be an awesome place to have it. We totally like took the run of the place. It was me and like 30 of my friends, and we were like, I mean, there were so many TVs in that place, right? And I was on all the TVs, turned up the volume like super, super loud, and we were freaking out. I mean, it was so cool to see myself on TV. I knew I made like a ton of weird smirky faces, and like my mannerisms were totally not as crazy as Austin's, but like Sweetie had told me like, wow, you made like all these kind of funny faces and you did this and that. And I was like, oh God, but they were actually like really funny to watch. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the interview. I thought it looked good. I felt like really, I'm like, I was really scared about, the camera adds 10 pounds. That was be like a big bloated whale, but actually like felt really good about myself. And it was awesome. So like funnest night last night. Like I, didn't really eat anything. Had a bunch of vodkas and felt pretty miserable today, but also felt pretty great. So yeah, amazing experience. Wouldn't change it for the world. Literally like on my bucket list, be on Jeopardy, and I've done it. So congratulations to me. Yeah. What do you think, sweetie?
I was just never more proud of you than in that moment when you got that daily double. I was just like, I didn't know the answer, and you knew the answer, and I was so proud of you. It was just very exciting, and it's hard. I can't even imagine like being an audience member. I also sat through 3 shows or whatever, and it's even exhausting just being an audience member because you just go through the whole thing. It's like, and you have to wait for like, if there's a problem, everybody has to stop, and then there's like 10 more minutes, and you're like, and then being a contestant in the audience, being like, when I could go on next, I don't know, like that's stressful. So I can't even imagine. But it was so much fun, and even we've both wanted to be on Jeopardy forever. And now that you've been on it, I don't feel like I need to be on it. Like I feel like just going there and seeing it all happen is enough for me. So I feel like
it's a crazy process.
Yeah, we both lived our dream, I think. So we're good. Okay, so I threw out a call on Twitter for people to ask questions to you. So I'm going to read those questions and then you will answer them.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one we got is from one of our top fans, Megan C. It's not a question, but I just wanted to bring this up because it is a good point, is that there was a Jurassic World question and she was screaming at the TV, Jurassic Park was the first large Marge episode. Good point, Megan. Yes, Jurassic Park, amazing movie. Jurassic World, great movie. You didn't get that question, sweetie, but we'll talk about she was ringing in like nuts, so obviously she knew it, people, but whatever. Okay, thank you, Megan. All right. So Hannah from the Film Roast podcast, another friend of the podcast we love. Check out the Film Roast podcast if you would. So she's a couple questions. Several. We'll say several. Number 1. Was Alex nice?
Okay, so as you know, Alex Trebek has a sort of his impression on the show is that he's like sort of smarmy, know-it-all, kind of does little, like throws a lot of shade at contestants, let's say, in the modern vernacular. And I would say that I was pleasantly surprised that he was actually a very nice guy. So he is hilarious. So there's not as much downtime as you would expect on the show. I've been telling everybody that Jeopardy is like a well-oiled machine. Like obviously the show is 30 whatever years old. They've been doing this forever. Shout out to the crew and everyone who works on that show were unbelievably nice. I've never met more nice people in my life. Literally everyone from the guy who mic'd me up, all the talent, the people who just dealt with all the contestants were like our best. We like were hugging them at the end. They were like our best friends. Unbelievably nice. All the crew, the producer, the cameraman, the like the judges, they have and writers and stuff. Alex, Johnny Gilbert. I mean, everyone is like unbelievably nice on that show. So the downtime, so there is like a little bit of downtime, even though the show basically films how you see it on TV. They take commercial breaks when there's commercial breaks, a little bit longer than I think the TV ones. But in the downtime, Alex takes the time, and Johnny Gilbert does too, to answer questions from the audience. So while they're like doing kind of prep stuff, tech stuff in between, Alex will like answer all these questions from the audience. He'll have to like re-record stuff. He was like throwing out jokes the whole time. I mean, the guy was like funny and super, super nice. So I think he's really like awesome, looks exactly how he looks like on TV. I've never stood that close to a celebrity before in my life. And you know how sometimes if you've seen celebrities and they're like, oh, they're taller or shorter or this or that, or they have bad skin or whatever, I don't know. Alex looked like exactly like he looks on TV and in photos and everything. It was kind of eerie. And like I said, like super, super nice. When I took like that photo, which I think I posted everywhere, of me and him. So they do little like the professional photos with everybody. And I think that was in the one of the commercial breaks. So they do those. And he like put his arm around me. He's like, oh, my daughter's name's Emily, and was like really sweet. So So that was really cool. So Alex Trebek, you're cool in my book, even though you called me weird.
All right. Next, he called me weird too, just so you know. Next question from Anna. Did anyone understand your Goonies reference?
Well, I don't think Alex did. That was like the crazy thing, right? So like, so the way those interviews work is that you give them 3 things you want to talk about. And when you get there in the morning, they're like, okay, like these are your 3 things, like, but what do you really want to talk about? So you tell them and they're like, okay, great. We're going to star this. And then like that's the one Alex will talk about. Unless he doesn't want to talk about it. So it's not guaranteed that he's going to talk about that, but like, I think he wants to make his job easier and be like, okay, like let's help everybody out. So that's the one I starred, and I knew he was basically going to say that one. So, but I didn't know what he was going to ask me or anything. So I'm just like, answering his questions. When he say why I threw in the Goonies reference is because when I said, we have 50 episodes, and he's like, what are some of the movies you watch? I'm like, well, for instance, our 50th was the Goonies, and he looked at me like I had 5 heads when I said the Goonies, and I was like, I gotta save this. I gotta save this moment. Like, this is crazy. Who doesn't know what the Goonies is? And I was like, what is the best line from the Goonies? Hey, you guys, and everyone got that, and I was like, fucking yeah. Everybody laughed. Yep, it was perfect.
Everyone in the audience laughed. I laughed. We all laughed. It was great. So yes, everyone else got it except for Alex, I will say. Why did your buzzer never work?
All right, guys, the buzzer. So as I'm sure you've probably heard, if you Google this, the buzzer is basically everybody's downfall. So the buzzer is so the way the buzzer works is that what you don't see at home is that the big Jeopardy board is like you see it at home, but on the side of it there's these lights, and the lights will go on the side when you can ring in. So how they time it is that, and the reason why they do that is that they don't want people in before Alex has finished reading the clue, right? Because people are playing at home. They don't want that to be like in the way. So they want the clue to be completely read before anyone can buzz in. So the lights go on, then you can buzz in. If you buzz in before the lights go on, you get locked out for a quarter second. So when you're doing the practices, the talent, like contestant people kind of tell you like a couple different like theories on what you can do to like beat the buzzer. So you can either watch for the visual cue, which is the light going on, but then they always remind you that there was this blind guy who was like a 10-day champ or something, and he obviously didn't have the power of sight, so he used a sound cue, which is basically what the guys on the light board use as well. So it's like the last syllable of the last word that Alex says, so you can do that. So they're telling you all this stuff, and in my mind, I'm like, last syllable, the last word, like, fuck that. I'm trying just to, like, figure out if I even know the fucking question. I'm not going to have time to be, like, counting syllables of someone's word or whatever. Anyway, that is actually, like, a really, really good hint. And because the visual cue did not work for me at all. It was the sound cue that I felt like I really, like, kind of got into. And if you do the sound cue, it makes you... or anything, like you need to speed read the clue, figure out if you know it, and then just be waiting on the buzzer. So if you like see me ringing in like 500 times, is that I just like could not master that whole thing. I also like changed my hand holds a bunch of times, because that was the other thing. They were like, well, sometimes if you're right-handed, like it's actually easier to buzz in with your left hand, or sometimes like 2 hands works or whatever. So I was like literally trying everything in the book. It got so frustrating. Me and the other guy, every commercial break, the guys would come in and be like, so the buzzer, and then be like, what did we say, Emily? And I was like, oh my god, I was like so frustrated. I was like, dude, I can't fucking get this. So annoying. And the thing is, like you really have a leg up as a returning champion, because like by the double Jeopardy round, like I kind of figured it out and like got in my groove. Too late for that. But if you had been on the show like 2 other times, like if you're a returning champion, like you obviously like know how that works. So like it's awesome to be the returning champion, because you do have that like total leg up with that fucking buzzer. My downfall.
The buzzer, always everyone's question. All right, last question from Hannah. Is Austin's hair real?
Yeah, totally. He's like a really nice guy, and he's getting sort of mixed reviews on Twitter. I think a lot of people are like really hating him. A lot of people are like, Austin's the coolest champion to come out of there. He's a really cool guy. He's from New York. Like just was kind of quiet like when we were kind of doing all the pre stuff, And then he really came alive in like the actual shows, and it was like, fuck, that guy is really smart. But he's super nice, obviously super smart, like just very cool. I think he didn't know, like he didn't even bring enough changes of clothes, so he didn't know like what he was going to do. I think he had to go into the wardrobe department at one point and like get another shirt or something, because they tell you to bring a couple extra changes of clothes in case you make it on the show, you know, because they film 5 in one day. So, but yeah, he's getting a lot of shit, but he's like a really nice guy. So give him all your support. He deserves it. He's super smart.
Sweet. Okay, Craig Enfield, also friend of the podcast, also has a podcast called the Take Two Podcast, has a couple questions. Number 1, did you interact with the other contestants?
Yep. So like I said, so like a shuttle rolls up at my hotel, and initially, like funny story, this like on Sweetie and I were at the bar of this hotel, and we remember this? We were at the bar and we got like shrimp cocktail and like some drinks on Monday night, like kind of when we got there. And this bar, we had like such a stereotypical like California bartender. He was like, oh, like I want to, well, no, he wasn't an actor, but he was like, oh, I'm from San Francisco and I like hate LA. Like he was kind of like kind of actually not good things about LA or whatever to say. Anyway, so we see down the line this guy like reading like a Dummy's Guide to Shakespeare or something like that. Like, wasn't it? And Sweetie was like, I think that guy's on Jeopardy too. And I was like, oh my God, really? And we were like, oh, should we ask him? Should we ask him? But like, we were talking very loudly, like to the bartender being like, I'm going to be on Jeopardy. And the guy didn't say anything. So we're like, maybe he's just like into Shakespeare. Like, who knows? So like, we didn't know. So in the morning, I'm down at brunch or breakfast, and there's like no one down there because it's like 6 a.m. except this guy. And then he's kind of like, he's really dressed up. He's like this super tall guy. It's actually the guy who was on today, Friday. I forget what his name is. Really nice guy. But so I eventually went up to him and I was like, hey, like, are you waiting for the Jeopardy shuttle? He was like, oh yeah. So then we started talking. He's like a lawyer. Really, really nice. Anyway, so like the van pulls up, and yeah, so we were the last people to get in the van because everyone else was staying at the other hotel. And yeah, it was just like everyone was just very nervous, but you could tell like kind of like very like quietly chatting. They had the guy from South Carolina, this like woman from Arizona, Minnesota. I mean, we were from like all over. It was like kind of crazy. And everyone was so super nice. Again, like there was a returning champion from the next week, so he was there like when we showed up. Everyone's super friendly, just in a really good mood, because you're just like, you know, as cheesy it is, so happy to be there. Like, you know, like you fucking made it. Like they tell you the odds, it's kind of crazy. So like 70,000 people take the online test or something like that, which you think it would be more, actually. Maybe, was it? And then there's like 4,000 people that they pull out for those like in-person sort of things, the one I did in Boston. And then 400 out of those get actual slots on the Jeopardy show. So like how you get picked at all, like I have no idea. Because I thought I bombed the test at all. Like I thought like my screen test was probably fine, but like the actual test, I was like, I don't think I got a 70 on this because it was actually pretty hard. So it's just a numbers game. So like, again, like just always take that test. Just keep taking the test. It's complete. It doesn't really have anything to do with other than luck. I mean, yes, you have to get like a certain percentage pass point on like a lot of the tests, but if you can clear that, like it just might be your lucky day and you might do it. I mean, there was like no reason why I was on that show other than like I lucked out, you know?
So this is one you get a lot. What did you talk about during the end credits? So there's a part at the end where Alex and the 3 contestants leave the podium and congregate in the middle of the studio and like seem to be having a friendly conversation. So everybody wants to know, what did you talk about?
Yeah. So after the show ends, they're like, okay, come out behind the podiums, and there's like marks on the set where you need to stand. So I think if it's one woman, they always put the woman next to Alex. So they're like, okay, Emily, come over here. So I was the closest to Alex, so like I was talking to him mostly first, and and so initially we started talking about how basically whooped that we got. He's like, wow, that guy Austin's a real buzzsaw. Like, oh my God, he's so good. Like, yeah, he just had the buzzer. So we're just like talking about the game. And then I started talking to Alex about like, I was like, that might be true. But like, I felt like we had like super hard questions. Because I was in the audience for all of the other games, which were not as hard. Like literally the game before me was a pitch, like one like section of clues was like a close-up of something, and they'd be like, what is this? So one was a close-up of a strawberry skin, and they're basically like, what is this? Like, what kind of Jeopardy question is that? A cheetah? They had like a picture of a cheetah skin, and they're like, whoa, this fast animal, like blah blah blah. A cheetah? Like, is this elementary school? Like, what the fuck? And then there were like other, like, so watching all the other games was, while helpful, like really fluffed up my feathers to be like, okay, like I'm gonna fucking nail this. Like, this is awesome. I'm gonna do so well. Like these questions are easy. I'm getting all of them. I got like a bunch of the final Jeopardies. And then my games comes around and it's like chess, like geographic, whatever, county seats, like all this like random bullshit. Ugh, so annoying. So anyway, so I started talking to Alex about that. I was like, what the hell? Like, what was up with these categories? I was like, chess, this, that. And Alex was just kind of like, oh yeah. And you could see him like sort of like looking around and like sort of talking to me, but not. And I was like, hey. No, I wasn't, but it's just kind of like really it's like the most awkward part of the show for sure, because it's just like not scripted at all, and you're just like shooting the shit, and he shakes your hand, he's like, good job, like that guy really killed it, whatever.
Lame. Okay. TC Rashani says, do parting contestants get a year's supply of turtle wax or rice-a-roni?
No, but like, remember, well, wait, is it, when I was a kid, I always thought it was a party gift. It's parting gift. When we did a game show, I think we said this, right? A supermarket sweep. Yeah, no, there's no parting gifts on this show, but you do win money, so that's pretty cool. You know, 1,000 for thirds, 2,000 for second. And if you're wondering, that's why I risked all my money on Final Jeopardy, because I just wanted to try to get $2,000, which didn't work because I got it completely wrong. No, if I had not risked anything, yeah. I should have not risked anything. Is that what you're saying?
Enough so that Robert couldn't have.
I know, you know what? And I like didn't even think that. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to risk it all. That was my plan all along for Double Jeopardy. Remember I told you that? I was like, screw that. It's not my money. I'm only on this show once. Like, who knows what the question's going to be? And they kind of tell you that too. Like, I think it's, you can be strategic and do the math and have all that stuff if you're like actually vying for someone, like with someone. But Austin had like thousands of dollars. He had like $30,000. Obviously a runaway, like that was not important. And it was, the category was New York City, Northeast cities, and I'm from the Northeast, so I'm like, sweet. And obviously did not even pick a city in the Northeast, but you know, we'll talk about that another time.
Maybe never talk about that again. Okay, Justin from the Movie Geek Cast, another friend of the podcast who I guest starred on with Hannah, Amanda, and Ashley on 80s Rom-Coms, that podcast. He had a question. What does Trebek smell like?
The Canadian wilderness. No, he didn't smell like anything. I mean, I was never like, I know I gave him like a sort of like pseudo hug in the picture, but I don't remember him smelling like anything. I mean, lovely suits. He had a new suit every show. So like in between shows, he has to go and get changed into a different suit because it's supposed to be like a different day. Mm-hmm. So he had like a lovely wardrobe, beautiful hair and makeup, but yeah, no smell. Cologne. No cologne. Yep.
Steve from the Everything I Learned from Movies podcast asked a few questions that we've already covered mostly. How was the audition process? So we covered that, a couple parts to that. Did you practice by using the home game? Not really. Sweetie started with flashcards, but I was like, fuck this. Also, I'm busy, so can't practice. What kind of a category is potpourri? So on Celebrity Jeopardy, which is a skit on SNL, they always have a category that's like potpourri, because that used to be like a famous Jeopardy category. So do you know, sweetie, what the potpourri category is?
It's just random clues that have no relation to each other. Yeah.
Okay, so the movie Vigilante asked, were you not allowed to mention the name of your podcast on the show?
So when we did our like 3 things to talk about, and I now forget like what my other ones were, even because I was really pushing the podcast, and we were hoping to be able to talk about it because obviously in national broadcasts we wanted people to like learn about the podcast, and it would be really fun, and you know, it's a good story and it's a great name of a podcast, whatever. So they did tell me I could not mention the name of it unless Alex asked me what it was. And we were watching last night. People were like, "Oh my god, you totally could have said it," because I forget the way he phrased it. He's like, "So it says here you have a podcast with your sister," and I was like, "Yep." Was he like, "What's this about?"
Yeah, he said,
"What is it about?"
He just said, "You have a podcast
Yeah,
with
yeah.
your sister."
And I could have been like, "I do. It's called Large March Sent Us."
No, you could only
Right?
ask, "What's it called?"
No, but I just could have been like shove that in there. But the way they told me not to, it just felt very threatening. So I was like, okay, like I don't want to get in trouble, first of all, and I don't want them to like have to edit something out or bleep it or whatever. I've never seen them bleep interviews though, so I guess I should have thought about that. But I mean, it's you want to follow the rules obviously to the T with that stuff because you don't want to risk any reason why you wouldn't be able to be on the show. So I didn't say it, but we've like, you know, with the beauty of social media and the internet and all that stuff, like people have found us, which is really cool. And we've tried to been really good about, if people tweeted and said, "Oh, like what's the podcast Emily mentions?" Like we tried to follow up with all that stuff. So I know we got like a couple, people have reached out and said, "I found you through Jeopardy." So that is amazing. So thank you. Awesome. Welcome to the Sweetie Club.
Did you have a favorite category other than the movie one? So there was a movie quotes question, which I think was your first answer that you actually got the buzzer to work, and it was A Few Good Men. I know you knew all the other movie quotes. There's Ghostbusters, obviously you knew that, but obviously Austin beat you to it. Did you have any other favorite categories that you remember?
Remember I remember like certain questions. I mean, I think I only got like 12 questions right total, but like I remember the Anne McEwen Atonement one. Anne McEwen is one of my favorite authors, so I was like, and no one knew that one. And I remember Austin being like, yeah, like he was like, good for you, like he didn't know that one. And I was like, ha. I got randomly the earthquake one, which I completely forgot about. I was like, what? I got the county seat one for Massachusetts, which was like Abby. Thank God I got that one. The Daily Double. Okay, so I'll tell you about that experience. So the Daily Double, I was terrified of the Daily Double. And always when we had watched this show, as long as it has been, I think I've always said, you know what? I'm always going to risk like all of my money for Daily Double. Because that's how you really pull ahead. If you've ever seen like Real Champions on this show, like you get those Daily Doubles, you do the double because like you want to get as far ahead of like the rest of your competitors as possible. But when my Daily Double came, I like completely chickened out. I didn't have enough money, and I was terrified that I wouldn't make it to Final Jeopardy. That I did not want to make it to Final Jeopardy. Like earlier that day, a woman, I think I was on the Monday show, didn't make it to final, and that was like super crushing. And there's nothing worse than going on that show and not making it. So I was like, I'm not going to get in the negatives, and I want to make it. So I only risked $1,000. But I remember that clue got like, it was the county seat one. Right. And it was about, I barely even like remember read any of the question until that part. It was basically mentioned like the richest person in Michigan, and like, who is like the most famous person from Michigan? You better believe it. Like Henry Ford. And that came to me like so quick, and I just spit it out, remember? And he kind of pauses, and he's like, that's right. And I was like, like, thank God. It was like terrifying, but I almost like didn't have enough time to be terrified. I was just like, but yeah, so that was really fun. I don't remember like about chess was the suckiest fucking question ever. Oh my God. I should have guessed on that, the forks one, because I like knew it just because I'm like, I bet it's forks. But yeah, I don't remember like a lot of the other ones. It wasn't good categories. It was definitely like a shitty categories.
Do you prefer Alex with or without a mustache?
I don't know if I've ever seen him without. Wait, what? With. You're right. That reminds me of when my dad like had a mustache and didn't have a mustache. That was super weird. I remember when because I think as a little kid he always had one, and then he shaved it, and we were like, "Who are you?" But yeah. So I guess without. I have like seen. I don't know if there's like this station called Buzzer. Have you heard of this? That plays all the old game shows. So they play old Jeopardy like episodes, and I saw one from like the 80s, and he's like super young and has a mustache, and I was like, wow, like the show has been on for so long.
Michelle asked about the buzzer, which we talked about, and then she also asked, did you really, really, in all caps, not tell anyone the results before the show aired? So any game show you're on, or show, reality show, whatever, they tell you can't talk to anybody about it, you can't tell them the results, whatever. They want to keep it confidential for the surprise or whatever. So you have to like sign a thing that's basically like signing over your life, like I will not tell anybody about this. Did you have to do that for Jeopardy? I think you did. So, but did you really not tell anyone the results?
Yeah, so they said, they're like, hey, like you can tell your significant other and your mom or dad or whatever, like what happened. But their whole point is that they don't, with the proliferation of social media and the internet and stuff, like you can't be publicizing that. You can't give any interviews that state the outcome of the game or anything like that. So you just have to be really like cognizant of that and not do that. And I was really good about that. Like I was like, oh, did I win? Did I not? And like they do want that because that makes people like want to watch and see, and people didn't know. I mean, but I did tell, I knew I didn't do that well, and I knew I like bombed that final. So I did tell privately many people in my circle how I did. A lot of people didn't want to know, which I thought was funny. They're like, don't tell me. And I just wanted to get out there because people thought I did do like really, really well. And that was really hard going into yesterday, being like, people thought I like won. And I just felt kind of shitty that they were going to be like super disappointed. But again, like just cool to be there. My coworker today who sits next to me was like, oh, he's like, I watched. He's like, that was awesome. He's like, you like did so much better than you let on. So I guess I was like doing that like kind of thing where I was like self-deprecating to the point that like people thought I like did nothing. So maybe that was my plan all along. But yeah, no, I did tell a couple people.
Two Peas on a podcast, another podcast you should listen to, asked, how long did an actual episode take to record, or is 30 minutes pretty accurate? I'd say it's about, I can answer this one because I was in the audience. No big deal. It did about, if there weren't any issues, it did probably take about like 30 to 40 minutes. So the one time there was an issue was the show before Sweeties, I think. It was, the category was like colleges and universities or something. And Austin rang in and answered. It was Ivy League schools. There wasn't that many options. Right. And Austin rang in and like said something, and Alex was like, no, not that. He like he misheard Austin's answer and in turn gave away the answer to the next question by accident. And then there was like this big to do, and they had to like stop everything. The contestants have to turn around. They like, the lawyers go in a back room and discuss like if he was giving away the answer. So he comes back and Alex is like, apparently I misheard, like they play the tapes back, the lawyers got involved, like, so we're gonna reset the board with a new question. So they completely wiped out that question and then did it and started from scratch, and Austin ended up getting that one too, so it didn't even matter. But good times.
Yeah, that was like the craziest part. Like that was the only time that happened. I think, like we said, like there's a couple times where they had to re-record audio that he did because he might have like mangled a word when he said it or whatever like that. But other than that, like such a smooth operation there. Just like a couple bobbles, like some sound stuff. Remember that one? There was like something with Final Jeopardy that was like a weird wager thing or something like that. That was like one of them. Remember? Where like and this happens. So when you wager, like because it could be like a technical malfunction, they have you write your wager on cardboard as well as like the wager on the pad, the electronic pad thing that like shows up on the TV screen that you have. Cause like it could technically malfunction. They don't want it to be like, oh, like your thing wasn't recorded. So that's kind of cool. Like they make for those sort of like circumstances. If like, technical glitches, which does happen there's tons of monitors and screens and stuff that could like totally like malfunction. So kind of interesting that they like make for kind of plan B stuff.
Yeah. And the final question was from Amanda's picture show Go-Go, which we kind of touched on, but similar. Are you secretly best friends with Alex now after the show is over?
I wish. He seems like a cool guy. He has so that show tapes 2 days a week, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and they do 5 shows a day. So that's like his working week. He works 2 days a week. 10 to 4. I mean, he gets there to prep and get makeup and stuff, so I'm sure he gets there at like 8 or something. And then I think there was a question from the audience. Remember that? They're like, how do you spend your off time? And he like told people like what he likes for dinner. He likes to drink like a nice glass of Chardonnay and like whatever. I think that guy lives like a pretty sweet life. Yeah, and he makes a couple million a year, so good for you, Alex. You deserve it, though. You're cool.
So you didn't include this in the if you get a parting gift, but you did get a parting gift that you forgot to mention. Yep.
So yeah, so they're like they let you go, and they're like, oh, like don't forget your swag bag. So in the back like green room thing where we were like all getting ready. Oh, and that was cool too. They had in the green room, they had like whatever you wanted. So they had like coffee, tea, water, all these granola bars and stuff like that. So that was nice. Tons of Jeopardy pens. I totally like grabbed a bunch of Jeopardy pens. And they have this little tote bag, and inside it had, I was expecting a little bit more swag. I thought it was going to be like a t-shirt and this and that. But it was just a hat, a Jeopardy hat, which I've totally rocked though, and I really like. It's like, who's a Jeopardy hat? I just feel like that's like super unique. Anyone could get maybe like a Jeopardy shirt. I mean, it would be cool that if they gave you a shirt that was like I was on Jeopardy or something like that. Like that would be kind of awesome. But yeah, again, like super the nicest people who work there. Like they and they just have to do that. I mean, it's just like, I don't know how many times they have to give you that speech where they're like, this is what you do. This is how you act. This is like blah, blah, blah. And it didn't feel like it was like a job for them. They just felt like they love doing it. And I think they like really do love their job. So shout out to those people for show.
Cool. So that was the last question. Thanks everybody for submitting your questions. If you have any more, feel free to shout out to us on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or directly to Sweetie herself at EK Dumas DUMAS 19, and she'll get back to you hopefully.
Yeah, thank you guys for being amazing supporters. Everyone in the podcast community was like super supportive of me being on the show, and I know you guys all watched, and I got screenshots, and it was just so amazing. Again, I want to stress, like, if you are at all interested in trivia and think you could be on Jeopardy, take that online test. They do it at least once a year. I think it's usually in the winter. Just keep taking it every year and like see what happens. It was an amazing experience. I will never forget it. I just feel like I don't need to be another game show. I feel pretty good about that because I feel like this is the top one. I feel like this is it. This is like the top. Mm-hmm. You can only go down from here. And now I'm kind of like, what's next? Because like, I got that call in April, and then it's just been Jeopardy since like April of this year. And now it's over. And like, what else do I have to do? It's kind of scary. What's after Jeopardy? Podcasting? Life. Living the dream. But yeah, so I hope this was super fun for you all. Thanks again. All right, let's stop. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.